Dad, I'm really bored.
Bored? You there?
Hey?
Good day to you. I'm the advisor, and I'm here to take you to a magical land. You first, lad. Friends can come too. Even grown-ups. I almost forgot. You too. Go!
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first randomised gaming video of the year 2020. Yes, and a whole new decade as well. I am your host, Random Gamer Riven, and in today's video I thought we'd take a sort of look at a management simulator title. I actually looked at too many. I've got here in my hand the PlayStation version of Theme Park, which is the one I've actually looked at. I've actually got the DS version as well. But this is the one we're showing you, the PlayStation version in this footage, which was based on the Saturn one, and I believe based on sort of the Amiga CD32. It was based on the later ports, as it's got the CGI rendered intro, as you saw at the start. At the time, they looked really good. These days, they look a bit dated, but they're still a nice little feature to complement a game. So I'm just entering my name here and my nickname, RG Gaming Riven, and we're going to call the park RG Gaming Land. So this is a simulator done by Bullfrog, great sense of humour. I mean, it is a cult classic. You basically build up your theme park, you make it successful, and you try to make yourself not go bankrupt in the meantime as you build it up. The aim is to build up your park and basically get it big enough so you can then sell it and then basically buy a different plot of land in a different country, because initially you can only start a park in the United Kingdom, and there's various different challenge settings depending where in the world you decide to build your park. Although because of the way Theme Park was structured, that was probably necessarily quite a bad move, as often you fancied going for the challenges right from the start, and having to build a park in the UK often meant most players didn't really build too many parks in foreign lands. The UK park is the only 3 one, and you don't have enough money to buy any of the others, which was probably a mistake on Bullfrog's behalf, I have to admit. You see here, some of them are extremely expensive, and you need to build up a very successful park before you can buy them. There are various factors such as how long you get taxed and rent, and whether the economy is rich, poor, etc., and basically the difficulty. So I'm going to take you through the sort of first 40 minutes of the game. I mean, it actually translates surprisingly well on PlayStation 1, and I must admit, we had the original Amiga A500 version, which had a number of faults, I must admit, but it was still a joy to play, but there were quite a few bugs with this. Theme Park is still a little bit buggy even today. There are some annoyances with the game that Bullfrog never have fixed, and perhaps the biggest issue with the game is the fact that the game basically gets too large for its own good. And what I mean by that is simply that if you build a park too large, the game will crash in just about every version of theme park ever released. So you actually literally cannot build a park too big, because then the game will simply just crash. And I've had that on just about every console version of theme park I've ever played. We build up a massive park and then it just starts crashing randomly very, very quickly. So that was one of the many flaws in the game that never got addressed. And I think even I remember reading an interview of Bullfrog where they actually admitted there was sort of random crash or memory leak. But basically, if you build up your park too big, you will have problems. So you can see here I am just starting out building the shops. Probably should have slowed the time down initially because you can adjust the time. You don't need to open your park to the public straight away. There were some quite cool features. There's quite a lot of sim management. There's share pricing as well. You can actually buy up all your shares as well to prevent other people buying shares in your park and having to give out dividends. You have the loan as well and the interest, and you can pay back the loan as your park gets more successful. So there was actually quite a lot of management side to it. You have researching in order to develop new rides, train staff, new features, scenery. So there's actually quite an awful lot to research across all the various sections. And you've got all these abilities you can adjust here. So this is the duck chute. So I'm going to be cheeky. Best way to do it, set a really high, expensive prize, set the probability to incredibly low, and then have a very expensive price of admission to actually play that game, and you'll get loads of people play it, and very few people will win it. So basically the expensive prize acts as a sort of incentive for people to pay quite a bit to try and win it. And then you can adjust things like the sugar in the ice cream here. I believe you could adjust the caffeine so it made people hyper. Salt in the chips would make people want to drink more and eat more, and you could be quite sneaky like that. I do that in a later bit in this section where I turned the chips. I did put the salt to high just for a bit of fun. So there are a variety of items you can add in. The PlayStation version and the Saturn version are pretty much on par with one another. I'm not sure which was built first. My suspicion might be the Saturn's, but the PlayStation version, the reason I'm just showing it here is the PlayStation version had a 3D walk around mode that you could actually see your park in. It's not great, but it's still a nice little extra that wasn't in the Saturn's one. But yeah, the 3D mode doesn't look very good. Some of the models aren't even finished by the looks of some of the sort of buildings and stuff. But as you see here, I'm just fencing off the shop, and the reason for doing that is just to avoid people walking into it. There is a very annoying, if you've ever built a big theme park in this, you will occasionally get the advisor tell you someone is stuck in your park, you need to find them. And trust me when I say having walls around your shops and rides is a good idea to stop people getting stuck on them, or at least makes you visible to see where they are, because often they could get stuck like right behind a ride or a shop and then you just can't see them, and then you're literally having to tear half your park down to get them out of the park. And the other thing is not to build right at the base as well, because if you build right at the base, they can get stuck as well, because people will often they'll just ignore the path and just walk down and come to the exit. You can hire staff as well, and there's lots of different things you need to do. So handymen clean the path once people start buying stuff, and they also clean the toilets as well. There's various rides, and mechanics repair the rides because the rides break down over time. You also have to replace them after a long enough period because they do wear down totally. So there I'm just adjusting the game speed for the initial bit as I build up the park. But there is an awful lot to do in Theme Park, and it's one of those games that was really, really popular at the time. Now, some of the later sort of follow-up titles have certainly surpassed it. In fact, there's a huge array of titles that sort of been basically followed on to Theme Park. So Theme Park itself had a couple of sequels. It's technically its first direct sequel, although it's more a semi-sequel, is Theme Hospital, which was a sim game about hospital. Again, hilariously funny. Really, really good. Theme Hospital itself never had any direct sequels, but Twin Breakpoint, which Sega recently released? That's a really good sort of follow-on to Theme Hospital. So the first official sequel sort of directly after Theme Hospital was Theme Park World, known as Sim Theme Park, which was sort of about 2099, I seem to recall. That got released on PC. That got released on PS1 as well. Also got released on PS2. And the PS2 version is actually the better one to go for. Then they did Theme Park Inc., which is also known as Sim Coaster. Although I've never played that one. That, I understand, was a bit of a dumbed-down version of Theme Park World. Theme Park World itself wasn't that great either. It sort of carried on elements of Theme Park, but it dumbed it down. They did, in sort of 2011, do a Theme Park iOS game that was widely derided for having really, really expensive sort of in-game app purchases. That sort of died a death. I think the most recent version is Theme Park on the Nintendo DS. Or I should say the most recent version of Theme Park was on the Nintendo DS. Oddly enough, there's a slight annoyance with Theme Park in that each of the different versions have different mechanics. And there are a few items and rides exclusive to each of the different versions. So there are a couple of things with the SNES and the Mega Drive one, which I think was sort of done quite late console ports, although you're quite surprised. I think it even got ported to the SNES and Mega Drive, but they added in a few sort of things, like I think they changed some of the, you didn't just get grass, so you did actually get sort of desert region and tundra region. I think there are one or two additional rides. The DS version apparently has a few themed rides according to where you are in the world. There are a few other changes, so the original Amiga's version didn't have any of the intros, and they added in the intros and stuff. There's Shin Theme Park in Japan, was a redone version of Theme Park with additional rides and content flavoured to suit the Japanese. It was only released on PS1 and Saturn. Weirdly, Theme Park, like on the Sega Saturn, actually in Japan got two releases. They got the original version, then they got the Shin version, which made it a bit more anime looking and added in a few more. Basically, they redid all the visuals largely, and they changed some of the rides so they were more Japanese themed. So you got some of the existing rides, others all got reskinned, and they also totally changed some so they're more Japanese. That's actually quite a novelty just to play, just to see all the changes. It's an odd one, but it's quite a novelty. That was only released on Saturn and PlayStation, I believe. Shin Theme Park may have got a PC release, but it was a Japanese only one. Just hiring a cuddly entertainer here, just to keep the punters occupied. Actually, if you've got long queues, it was always a good idea to put entertainers in the queues as well. And then, of course, the obligatory handyman who you needed to sweep up all the garbage because everyone dropped garbage. There wasn't actually litter bins in this one, which was a bit annoying. I did see some of the later sort of games that followed on from this did add in things like litter bins. The other titles that sort of followed on this format, of course, there was Chris Sawyer's RollerCoaster Tycoons. Now, Chris Sawyer did the first two RollerCoaster Tycoons. Frontier did the third one. And RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 and 2 really felt like spiritual successors to Theme Park. They just basically modernised Theme Park and gave you the ability to customise the sort of roller coasters even more. RollerCoaster Tycoon 3, I think, that was all in 3D, so that had some drawbacks. It wasn't as popular, but that in turn, Frontier then went on to do Planet Coaster, which had that own sets of rules and a few additional things. And Parkitect, which is a really, really new one, which has recently got a new expansion last year in November. That is a sort of follow-on to RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 and 2. So effectively, you could argue Theme Park, then the first two RollerCoaster Tycoon games and Parkitect are all based around one another. And, of course, Frontier did base their RollerCoaster Tycoon on the previous ones and Theme Park as well. But I'm not a fan of the Frontier stuff as much as I prefer the earlier Chris Sawyer RollerCoaster Tycoon games. But again, Planet Coaster as well. All of them are actually very solid games, well worth picking up if you like this. I mean, the Theme Park itself may be a bit dated for some, but as you can see here, this is the year-end summary where you decide you win awards to get some additional cash to help you over. And there's some nice micro mechanics in this with the shares. Some of it doesn't work as well as it should do. The balance information seems to largely often repeat the same things or just sort of give you a prospect that's doom and gloom, and then actually when you start checking it out you realise, no, my park is actually making money. And things like the balloon stands, the coffee shops are a great way to actually make money with the shops, and actually getting it right is quite a key factor. You need to get the prices right for everything. The other thing you need to be is on top of things like stock. because Mr. Whippy's is a bit weird. Some shops require you order stock, some don't. So the coffee shop never requires stock. Ice cream does, and you have to constantly keep ordering stock, and it can be quite annoying because basically the stock will not last you the year, it will only last you a few months, so you're having to sort of order every few months just to make sure you're constantly able to sell ice cream. Well, the game doesn't have any seasonal variants, so you can sell ice cream all year round. There's not sort of any much in the way of weather variations. There was in the PC one, although I haven't seen any weather changes in the few years I played through the PlayStation one, so that might be one effect, missing some of the weather and rain. As I said, there are a lot of variants between all the different versions of the game. I can't say there's one complete absolute must-have version. The PC version is actually available on Good Old Games, I did see, but again that's the DOS version, and that lacks some of the sort of trimmings of some of the later versions. And this PS1 version is actually available on PS3 and PSP as a download. I suspect it's probably available on Vita as well. It's basically available in the store as a PS1. It's not available on PS4. You need a PS3 or a PSP. So you get a couple of CGI intros for all the different rides. I'll just quickly show you a couple of them. Not all the rides have them. The Ghost train doesn't actually have a CGI intro. Yeah! We'll just build a tree house as well. So the intros are a nice little extra. They don't add a huge amount, but they are a nice touch. It's just annoying not every ride has them. It would have been nice if they'd added intros for all the different rides, but they only added in for most of them. There's one or two that don't have them. But it's fair to say most of the theme park rides seen in this game are based on genuine theme park rides. You see there, the advisor telling us we need to order some more ice cream stock, and that's what I mean by you have to constantly keep on top of the ice cream and making sure to keep in the supplies ordered. And the other thing you need to do is pay for research, so that way you get the new things. Now, I always do the features research first, purely because that gets you the super duper toilets, which everyone wants to use. And the other fact is that the features one isn't actually that long to complete, so it's worth doing the features one just to get it out of the way. There's some nice features, not a huge amount of stuff, but it does allow you to sort of give yourself a nice little customize with the different trees, so you can kind of make different areas of your park out if you wanted. speeding up the game speed there. Again, signposts are always a good thing to do. It's always best to have them at the entrance. It's always a good idea to signpost. I didn't actually signpost the exit, but it's worth signposting the exit just to avoid people sort of running around on the grass at points. And we've got smoking bouncy castle there, which means I need to close that down and get a mechanic in to fix it. My general rule of thumbs with mechanics is if you have more than one ride breaking down, you should always have just enough mechanics to cover the amount of rides breaking down. Just do a bit more research now, do a few more do some rides and a few more shops as well, just to expand our the facilities in our park. And just going to put some spooky trees around where the ghost train is, just to give it a bit more ambience. I think the ghost train, although there's actually weird, there's a haunted house. I think it's actually called like the ghost house, that one, even though it's more like a ghost train. And then there's actually a haunted house one later on, which is like a creepy Addams Family style house. So there's actually two sort of ghostly rides. Now this is the maze, the first one you can actually develop. And a little bug here where the entrance and exit for the maze are automatically placed. And I know that bug because having played it for so many years, so I instantly build it according to where I need to go, because so I know where the entrance and exit are going to be placed. Although you can, most of the rides you can, once you can turn them off and then adjust them, so you can actually adjust the ride settings. You see here you've got the intros. But you can also tweak the speed of the ride, the capacity as well. You can also reduce the time on the ride to help move people through it a bit quicker, and also adjust it so it doesn't break down quite as often as some rides are quite unreliable in comparison to others. Some you'll find, like the bouncy castle, break down after a handful of people have been on it, while others take an absolute beating before they break down. The ghost train's actually quite a good one. That one's actually a really reliable one, doesn't break down that often. As you do research into rides as well, you can reduce their time they take to repair, and also basically give them more durability so they break down less often as well, which is handy, so you need less mechanics then. I'm actually being a cheeky. Normally I have a security guard from the get-go, but this time round I'm not going to hire one, and I never actually had a Hell's Angel come to my park. But basically, if you let your park get full of trash and all sorts, you will occasionally get a little Hell's Angel come along on his bike and start wreaking havoc. They basically go around popping people's balloons, trashing rides, trashing stalls, but basically you need to get a security guard to lead them away fairly quickly when they arrive. So there is actually a great sense of humour. A few people will notice the names of some of your competitors as well are key figures from the United Kingdom at the time. There's a couple of politician names and a few other bits and bobs. Bullfrog certainly had a sense of humour with their games, which is always nice to see. You can see now the park is beginning to come along nicely. Yes, and this is the end of 1996. Some time ago now, but there's the RG Gaming has said, yeah, a few people's names there. You may recognise a few of them. Although Bingo Highway and Prof Moneybags are always quite amusing. So yes, this is what I mean about always keeping on top of your stock. You can increase your warehouse facility, but you do have to constantly keep ordering it. There's the one site gripe that had it would have been nice if there was like an auto order feature. Now this is actually being played on the PAL version. I believe it's in part PAL optimized because of how well it runs. Speed is very smooth. It doesn't look... all the sound effects, nothing feels slow or anything. It all feels it's running at the right speed. The music all feels on key, doesn't feel slow or too fast. I suppose there's maybe one game that actually probably ran a bit too fast on the NTSC versions, as Bullfrog were a United Kingdom developer. So I suspect they may have optimised their games for 50 Hz and not 60. But I could be wrong. Certainly if you have, like I said, if you've got a DS, it's worth picking up or 3DS, well worth picking up a original DS version. Again, if you've got PS3 or a PSP, you can pick up the PS1 version, which is this version shown. And again, if you fancy playing the PC version, you pick it up from Good Old Games. So there's still quite a few ways to play this classic title. It is a classic title theme park. There are a few annoying bugs, and I will say it always gripes me the fact the park starts crashing when they get too big, so it does stifle creativity a little bit. But there is something quite impressive when you build up a massive roller coaster and then everyone starts really enjoying it and things like that. You can basically build up what I call, one of the things when you get good enough, if you build up the tube and like the Dodgems ride and the roller coaster big enough, every person that goes on it will have a massive smile on their face. So there were some nice features like that. You see there, our current loan, we are currently available cash 65,000. So at the minute I can't quite afford to pay off the loan, but that is one thing you want to do. Pay for your loan, buy up your shares, makes things a lot easier for you. And I think it's about after 5 or 6 years in business, you can then sell the park and move on to pastures new. Well, I think one of my gripes is whenever you actually moved on, you reset like all the research and stuff, which was one of the annoying things. You kind of wanted to keep the research. It was always one of those games where I actually felt trying to conquer the different regions of the world wasn't really that interesting because there wasn't enough regional variance. As I said, there are a few changes in a few of them. But I always felt there wasn't enough changements and new features between a lot of the newer versions. It would have been nice if they'd added in a few more park rides and stuff. Added in a few bits and bobs, but I don't think there was enough. There's never quite been the definitive version. It'd be nice if they did like a PS4 update, but I can't see that happening these days, or even sort of a PS5 version, sort of retro reissue of this. It would be nice to have like a full-on sort of, so basically this sort of version, the PS1 or Saturn style version, with their sort of music, the CD intros, the additional bits they add in for the DS and the SNES and Mega Drive ones, all sort of put together. Maybe even the stuff from the Shin Japanese version and a few other bits. It'd be nice if they put it all together in one complete package, but I think it's probably scattered across too many parts of EA for that to happen. But it would be nice if they did do a modern version of this, or perhaps fixed up a few of the lingering bugs that have remained. It'd be nice if they added in a few regional variants. So if you went to the different regions, things were slightly different. And it'd be nice if you could just pick which region of the world you wanted to start in from the get-go. Rather than that, this was a classic that I spent countless hours when I was younger playing, and I still do play it quite often. It's actually quite a nice title to play on the go on the Nintendo DS, and it's still a very fun, entertaining title. Some of the sim games can get overly complex, and I think Theme Park keeps it complex enough but simplistic enough, nothing quite gets overwhelming. So this is the 3D tour view added in for the PS1 version, hence why I waited to build up the park before I wanted to show you a bit of it, because it's not that great. As you see there, you basically literally everything's quite flat except for the Mr. Whippy stand there. The coffee shop and things doesn't even look right. The controls are a bit like a tank. This is a mode that, while it looks nice at first, you think, hey, it's in 3D, when you actually start using it, you realise actually this is pants mode, and I'd much rather have preferred they just added in some additional rides and facilities and scenery to build in game. There's a bouncy castle and the snake ride. The 3D in this section doesn't look particularly good either. It looks pretty terrible. So after I've done a quick tour of the park in this mode, I'm just going to carry on building it for the next 10 minutes. I'm going to finish actually my talking discussion on it. I think I've pretty much covered everything I wanted to say about theme parks, so I'll just let you listen to the game's ambience for the next few minutes. I mean, there isn't a huge amount of ambience. You do get the bit of music for each ride when you're sort of floating over it, but they don't last particularly long. It's mainly just the sort of ambient sounds. It would have been nice if there was a backing track in, a sort of music track just gently playing in the background while you do the navigation and various menus. That's probably one of the weaker elements of Theme Park. So I'm going to leave you there. As they say, I have been your host, Random Gamer Riven. I hope you've enjoyed this first video 2020. As always, please do hit that like button. We could really do with those likes for all our videos. They do help our rankings. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned to the channel. There is an awful lot more content coming this year. So thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of the video, and we'll see you in our next video.